Sit back, relax a little bit. Let me tell you a story. See if yours is anything like mine. Remember when I was a kid? So much better when I popped the lid. Feel the rapper, open it up.
Exactly, listen to Seany. Right, and Cash Out's the easy way to get money transferred when you're out with friends. So pick up into that and then we'll get back to it.
He said, baby, jump in the back, boy. Tailgate crazy.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Seany and Justin coming at you for Shady Sports Network. This is season 3. I think we're running about episode 25. We are without Cedric tonight. He's got other obligations, so we're going to just do a recap of the day, talk about some highlights. Obviously, we always sprinkle a little bit of fantasy into what we do, but this tonight is usually just a bandwagon show where we just kind of go over highs and lows, games. We usually talk about our teams, obviously, Steelers for me. I don't know what team is Justin's. I don't. The Lions.
Mm-hmm.
And Ced's obviously a Broncos guy. But without him here, I watched that game today. It was amazing. Knicks came out of his show. So we're just going to touch on anything. But as we go through, you guys, please feel free. Jump in the chat. Drop some questions. They can be trade related. They can be waiver wire related. They can be just commenting on the game. Anything you got for us NFL wise between fantasy and just the game script, drop it. We'll read it and we'll answer to the best of our ability. Mostly we are a fantasy podcast. We just do the fantasy report. That's every Tuesdays. Make sure you guys catch us then. And how's everybody doing out there in the world? Justin, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well tonight. It was a good day. Weather was nice up here. Did some good family activities, but overall, it's been a nice day. For fantasy, it's been mostly miss than hit, and for my NFL team, it was a glorious day. It was we avoided the trap game. We took care of business, and now we're on to Green Bay.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Gibbs had his longest rip of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And
he
now
took over that game.
Yeah, we had commented earlier when we were talking in the chat that they have dubbed Montgomery and Gibbs Sonic and Knuckles.
Mm-hmm. I heard it on the radio broadcast today live when I was listening on the drive of when he busts that 70-yard run. The radio folks were all like, Sonic off to the races. So that's pretty cool. It's kind of here and stuck, and it's accurate. I mean, once he got in open space, he's gone. He's But it was nice to. We'll get into the specifics of that game later, but it was everything it should have been and more. I was impressed.
Absolutely. One big disappointment game I want to get into real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people probably had the Ravens pick to win today.
Ooh.
But unfortunately, that did not happen for me in my Pick'em League. That was the only one I missed. And it's killed. Well, granted, the Niners beat the Cowboys, which I don't think is a tall order. And my Steelers would have been the tiebreaker tomorrow. But I'll be gosh darn, man. And to see what kind of game Lamar had and everybody involved, that's how those AFC North games go. Being a Steelers fan all my life, 40 years of watching this division, it doesn't matter what the record is. It doesn't matter the talent around. Those games are always, they can go any which way. Unless it's the Steelers playing the Browns, because then they always lose. But I don't know, and you comment and let me know how you feel about it. Mm-hmm. Do you think this was just like, whatever, a divisional game, it went how it went? Or do you believe that Jameis Winston might be the key to that offense and taking these chances and throwing these touchdowns like he is?
Yeah, from the looks of it, it looked like putting Jameis Winston in there at quarterback gave that team a shot in the arm, like morale boost on offense to get things moving, the chains moving. And Njoku woke up. Cedric Tillman had a big game himself, and even Elijah Moore had a respectable game. I think by switching from Deshaun Watson to Jameis Winston, it gave that before the game that probably was a quiet, unspoken like positivity in the locker room that they have a chance, they have a shot at this game today at home in front of their fans, that they could, at least do some damage and not put out a pitiful performance out there on their team. And I think having Winston in there over Watson kind of opened things up. I don't know if the Ravens just didn't game plan for Winston because they didn't have film on him this year or tape or anything to like bounce off like how he was going to perform or what he was going to do.
Yeah, no game script of him, whatsoever.
Yeah,
going back to old.
That's my only free excuse or freebie I'd give to the Ravens defense. Otherwise, I was dismally disappointed by the Ravens D. I had Roquan Smith as my IDP player of the week. He only had
29.
Well, in my league, he only had 13 points. He had a very mediocre game in his standards. He only had, 5 solo tackles and 3 assists, and that was it. No sacks.
That's not him.
No pass defended, nothing. Him. So one of the top premier players on that defense having a subpar game does not help.
No.
And that whole pass defense was just bleeding yards from the air attack. They make Jameis Winston look like a quarterback too, at the very least.
Well, and that's my other question. Now, Jameson wasn't the backup, right? Isn't he technically the third string guy? Because who was taking snaps for them week before?
It was DTR in practice and Bailey Zappi before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew I was thinking Patriots for some reason, but yeah. Okay, so that makes sense.
And then also on my team of the week, I had the Baltimore Ravens defense. They came out with a 4-point burger. They allowed 29 points and only 2 sacks. Like, that's not good enough. Like, they're
usually dependable, man. Roquan especially. It's like, I don't know if breaking Godwin's leg put him in check to lighten up a little bit. I don't see that because he's such a headhunter.
Yeah,
such a passionate player. But he's a guy like you said, in IDP in all formats. I try to get him everywhere I can because he's usually a shoe-in of 40.
He was one of the highest projected players this week for IDP, and
like 38.
I fell into it. I ate it all up, and it kind of bit me in some of my matchups because I had going up against people with other linebackers or IDP players that doubled or even tripled his score, and I was kind of just like, God damn it.
Yeah.
So that Ravens defense to start off with, that was very, very humbling for them. They probably came into that matchup thinking they got take care of business. And 9 times out of 10, you go into a situation on the road against a backup quarterback, you thinking, okay, we just got to keep everything in front of us. We just got to keep the ball out of the end zone, and it should be a good day. But it was all but that for the Ravens defense.
Apart. Yeah. And that's the thing is I've always been a fan of Jameis Winston when he was on the Bucs and anywhere. And, there are those games where it's like, oh, he throws too many picks. There's been games where he has 3-4 interceptions, but he also has 4 or 5 touchdowns and over 300, 400 yards passing. Now, yeah, of course, the interceptions, you're not going to, as a coach from that standpoint, you don't want to see it at all, but sustainability and the way things are going for Cleveland, I think he's pretty much a godsend at this point, and they're gonna. I believe that they will continue to roll with him as the starter. And
do you want me to run through the stats on this game? It'd be pretty shocking.
Yeah,
to hear him. So for Jameis Winston, he threw 27 for 41 with 334 yards and 3 TDs. Which outpaced Lamar Jackson. Lamar had 289 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And to get into the Lamar part of this conversation is I fell for it. I had a couple lineups and a couple matchups where I was choosing between, do I start Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson? Do I start Jordan Love or Lamar Jackson? And I went Lamar Jackson. I mean, with the Love one, I was probably – I don't know the exact points, but it probably went in my favor. But the Joe Burrow one probably evened itself out and was more more of like a closer one. But still, though, I thought this was going to be a smash game for Lamar. He was going to put up 30, 40 points on the Browns, and it wasn't the case. It just wasn't the day. And even by Derrick Henry standards, he didn't have like an excellent, like a full throttling game. And he only had 11 carries, but he had that big run that he usually does in every game and a touchdown, which is kind of his standard.
The savior for fantasy. Not the best stats on the day, but still fantasy relevant, of course.
And the top receiving option for the Browns is Cedric Tillman, guys. 7 catches, 99 yards, and 2 tutties.
I'm a believer.
That was impressive. That was very.
I would
well
go.
done.
Between injuries, bye weeks coming up, and there's not very many options at the running back wide receiver position. There's no problem with adding him if you got the room, especially in deep leagues, because if Jameis found him as his guy and Jameis continues to go, then he's going to be that guy that you're going to want on that offense, and he's going to get the volume, he's going to get the target share, which makes him the guy in Cleveland. If you're a wide receiver one, you're a wide receiver one. I don't care what your name is. The volume's there. That's where you go. And Jameis obviously proved today that the kid has chops, and he's, so roll with that for sure.
I got to throw you some more stats here from this game, too. The Browns had 321 pass yards to the Ravens 253. And then I think what the big key was too, and this is what in a lot of games I've noticed when I'm running through box scores and stat boxes, which is a factor that really matters, is the third down efficiency. The Ravens were only 2 for 10. They couldn't keep drives sustained. They couldn't keep their offense on the field. Meanwhile, that giving the ball over to the Browns a lot more, and they almost doubled it. They were 8 for 15 on their third down efficiency. So they're effectively able to keep the drives going, keeping their offense on the field, and just not letting Lamar get a tempo or get like a rhythm going. I mean, the penalties are about the same. Time of possession was about the same. Total plays was about the same. But the one key stat looking here is that third down efficiency was way one side to the other. So I don't know going forward if this because I don't know who the Browns play next week, but I don't know if this was just a one-off, like, big hoorah game they caught a team sleeping, or if this is like going to be like the standard going forward where they're going to be able to throw the ball and run the ball modestly.
The Ravens are too good for that. The Ravens are too good for that. I just think it was a divisional game where things went crazy. They weren't expecting what Jameis did to them, and by the time it came down
turnovers too. I was impressed because, like you said, he's known to throw multiple picks in a game, and against that Ravens defense to be essentially turnover free and mistake free. It was. I know he got sacked a few times, but still, that was impressive.
Yeah, that comes down to protection. So it's just. They used to have Deshaun Watson back there, who's kind of capable of scrambling, maybe a little better than Jameis. But Winston still has scramble capability. He just, was probably feeling comfortable in the pocket and trying to stay poised and, not let, it get to him too much because he knew he was rolling steady. So
now, if you're the Ravens going into next week game, like what? How do you think they're probably feeling coming off of this divisional loss on the road and not playing so hot?
Yeah, I don't think they're feeling too good, but I don't think it's out of the realm for them to bounce back quickly. There's just too much talent. There's too much talent on that team. I think now, because without knowing the stats, like you're telling me, from what I looked at fantasy numbers wise, everything was still pretty relevant, and the guys still did pretty good between wide receiver, running back, and everything in between. But third down efficiency will lose you ball games. If you're turning the ball over constantly on third down, then, their time possession goes up. You're giving them more opportunities. Obviously, they're going to work on that. That's probably the main thing. And I think they'll go in a little less cocky and a little more prepared. So
I can run you through the next 3 Browns games. They play the Chargers next, then the Saints, then the Steelers. That's their next 3 games.
Okay. All right. Those are all
So
definitely, you know, the first two are winnable. The third one, sorry about
I
your
don't
luck.
see him beating the Steelers. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, that ain't happening. And then
But
for the Ravens, the
the
Ravens'
Saints,
next three matchups are the Broncos next, then the Bengals, then the Steelers. So both teams have to play the Steelers on their third
that's
game.
crazy. The Broncos have a rough defense, man. That might be,
Yeah,
and the way that they played today, I'm
they took care of
sure.
business.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, we can get into that one next, actually. But yeah, if they go in and they study tape and they're prepared for what they're doing, then I think that they'll be more than capable of pulling that out. I don't have any doubts about the Ravens. I just think that, if they have their head on straight and keep turnovers down, be more efficient on third down, they're right back in the scheme of
Mhm.
things.
Yeah, they could
But
easily go. Both teams could easily go 2-3 in their next three matchups. Where the one I think they're probably going to lose, I think they're both going to lose to the Steelers. So
yeah,
because I think the Giants don't have a shot in hell tomorrow. Like I think it's going to be a slaughter.
yeah, I
So
think we shut their run game down and they're going to depend on Robinson too much, and it's
mhm.
just not going to work out for them how they hope. I've said sillier things, but I still think it'll be reasonably close. I don't believe the Steelers are going to blow them out of the water, but I do believe that we get a dub for sure.
Mhm.
And then I guess moving on, one game that I really want to talk about real quick and just kind of want to brush it is Jaden Daniels' miraculous Hail Mary over Chicago in the last second of the game with the clock expired to beat Chicago 19-15.
Yes, that was impressive. But on that play too, if you saw how Noah Brown was just so wide open behind the play in the end zone, a lot of teams practice that where you have that initial
He's
cluster
covered,
that
yeah.
happens, and then you got to have that one guy in the back, except for that 1% chance that crazy thing happens. And lo and behold, it was today where that one crazy thing happened, and it
Yeah,
falls right in his bread basket. As a
yeah,
Lions fan, I was loving that last play of the game. I love
yeah, I'm
watching
sure
the
you
Bears eat
were.
that L. They were
Yeah, it did
looking
look like
bad all
Chicago
game.
had that thing wrapped up,
hmm It was
but
for three
no.
quarters. It looked like it was the Commanders' game to lose. And in that fourth quarter, the Bears woke up. They got that big, swift touchdown, and then they got life, drove the ball down the field towards the end. But that's the difference between good and great teams is you got to be able to close the door. I mean, this was one freak play. Like
Yeah.
99% of the time, that ball gets knocked down or intercepted. It's
Well, this season so far, I've only seen a couple Hail Marys, and they've both been successful. It
mhm.
was Aaron Jones to Lazard, which was insane how he caught it over the defender. And this one was a dink donk. It
Mhm.
went into the crowd and it popped right into his hands. The
Mhm.
odds of that happening again are, probably about as good as, me finding Tyrannosaurus fossils in my backyard.
Yeah. Well, props to that offensive line too, holding the Bears at bay and giving Jaden enough time to launch that ball down to the field.
Yeah, especially with him being hurt, coming back this week. Like, I mean, this was a big game for him to keep
Mhm.
his confidence up and to pull out that last minute win. Had to have felt good. I watched his interview after the game, and he wasn't revved up. He wasn't riled up. He was just grateful,
Mhm.
and that's the only
That
way
to
to
me looks
act
like
in
a
that
leader.
situation.
That's not like a diva or like a hothead. That's someone who's
Yeah,
humbled in
exactly.
the face
He
of
was just
victory.
thankful and grateful, and that's what you want to see. He wasn't shaking, he wasn't screaming, he wasn't yelling. He just stood
Mhm.
there and answered all. It was very, very professional of him, and I give him props for that because what he just did, getting that win like that, and then
That was
coming
big.
right off the field straight into that it's just impressive to see out of a young
Mhm.
rookie.
And between the duel there, Caleb Williams went 10 for 24, 131 yards. Jaden Daniels went 21 for 38, 326 and a touchdown. So check mark in Daniels' corner there for winning the performance
Yeah,
battle and for the game battle. So that's
yeah,
two
and
wins there.
that I got I'm very impressed by Jaden Daniels, and not only that, I mean, for fantasy relevancy and for dynasty purposes, that's one
Mhm.
quarterback that you want to definitely try and trade for. Anything you can do to obtain him is definitely something you want to do, because I see him having a long, successful career in this league, and if anything, just from the first 7 weeks of this season, it's plain to see that.
Yeah, if you could obtain him, I say go for it. If you can get a deal done involving him, then you want him, I'd say go for it and try to get him. Now,
Yeah.
some of the other leaders in this game, you got DeAndre Swift with the big 18 carries, 129 yards, and a touchdown. Rome
Wow.
Odunze was the top receiving option for the Bears with only 3 catches and 41 yards. Brian
Jeez.
Robinson, 16 carries, 65 yards, and Terry McLaurin had the big 5 catches for 125 yards. Those are the
Yeah. Yeah.
individual leaders, but it's in the stats column. It was lopsided. Total yards, Commanders 481, the Bears 307. The Commanders had 313 passing. Bears only had 111. The rushing yards was on the Bears side of it. They only had 196 to the Commanders 168. But again, here we go. That third down efficiency. The Bears were 2 for 12.
Yeah.
Commanders were 5 for 15.
Yeah. There
So
you go. I mean,
Commanders were able to
either.
sustain
I mean,
drives.
neither of those are stellar, and obviously you
Mm-hmm.
could tell by how the game shook out. I mean, it was still a low-scoring game. They didn't even make it into the 20s, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that final pullout. I mean, but yeah, it's a all-around rough game for
So in
both. But
fantasy,
they
if
were
you had the
playing tough.
kickers, you had a good day.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what else is cool to see? Swift come out of his shell,
Mm-hmm.
because he
That was
was
good.
dog the first couple weeks, like nothing,
Mhm.
and then
I thought he
obviously,
was pretty good.
yeah, obviously talks of him, losing his job or the next person
Mm-hmm.
up coming in. He came out that next week firing, and he kind of hasn't stopped since. So another guy that definitely sat on some benches, hopefully wasn't dropped, but is helping you now.
Yeah, the receiving options on both teams, I mean, outside of McLaurin, everybody else just had whole hum games, like 3 to 5 catches and, 40, 50 yards. It wasn't really anything
Yeah,
stellar or fantasy league winning or team winning, It was just kind of like par for the course. Now I'm
yeah.
seeing a theme here. The next 3 games for the Commanders, they play the Giants next week, then they play your Steelers this next week after that, and then they
What is
play
up
the
with this?
Eagles.
That's a tough schedule.
Yeah, so they got a tough schedule going forward, but so far, the games we went through, everybody's playing the Steelers at some point.
Yeah, it's
Now,
crazy, huh?
the Bears, their next 3 games are the Cardinals, the Patriots, then the Packers. So they have a
Oh
little bit
wow.
of a easier
They got
schedule.
a couple of easier ones when it comes to a defense that you can definitely
Mhm.
penetrate and take advantage of, and then a not so easy one.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on to, let's move. You know what? I gotta prop out the Broncos real quick, because
Yeah, let's do that.
Bo Nix, man, the way that he played today, the decisions he made today were awesome,
Oh
unreal.
man.
He finally found Sutton. He was taking shots, but not scary ones, like just huck and hope. They were
Mhm.
accurate throws. Some went through fingers. Troy Franklin dropped a long one, but either way, that defense played tough. That offense played right. And when they click, it's just like, they're scoring on drives. It's pretty
They had
good to see.
23 first downs too, so that was impressive. Like their offense, from what I was just reading box scores and whatnot, is it looked effective. Like I understand you're playing the Panthers, so you got like a bottom tier team. You should just be wiping the floor with them and all that, whatever. But like
Right.
what good teams do is they take care of business, and what this game showed me, or kind of like set concrete foundational for me, is that the Broncos are at least a good team. They take care of bad teams at home. They run their offense. They function with their defense, and they look good doing it. So, like at the bar minimum, like the Broncos, like at the beginning of the year, the expectations and the standards were they were going to be terrible. They weren't going to be good. They're going to be going for a top 5 pick. I don't think that's the case after this week. I'm not saying they're going to go on a huge run here or a streak, but just trends and certain things, expectations going forward. When you beat teams handedly that you're supposed to beat, it builds a culture. It builds a a morale boost in the locker room and with the team of like getting momentum going forward in future games. And believe me, I know as a Lions fan, when you get those wins stacking up, you get the team and the players believing in what trying to system they implement there. It does a lot for them. Like especially with your Steelers now, with getting Russ in there, winning football games, that locker room's pumped up. Pickens is ready to catch every ball for him. Najee's ready to run through a wall, and that defense is ready to just shut everyone down. Like when you get those good performances that you need to have, it creates a culture and a wave of an expectation for winning, and that says a lot going into weeks forward.
Yeah, definitely does. It definitely does. And I just Sean Payton had a good interview after, and he wasn't too revved up either. He actually talked about their mistakes more than what they did right. So he still wants to work on a few things, which tells me that he knows his quarterback's not perfect yet, and Bo knows it too. But he knows he's making enough right decisions and doing the right thing enough so to keep his job. And, not only that, to lead this team and continue to lead the team. And I think as of now, their record is 5-3.
Yes, sir. 5-3.
So, yeah. So
Panthers go to 1-7.
Pretty well, even though you just played a team that's now 1-6. I think because they had their bye week already.
They're 1-7 now, taking the loss against the Broncos.
Yeah, so not very good, but a great performance from the Broncos. Definitely propped out. Man, I'm so excited for the Steeler game tomorrow. I know it's just the Giants, but I love watching my boys on Monday night. Something I always look forward to. But I know that you are excited because I want to hear the stats from the game, the Lions game.
Well, we could go through real quick like that. What you're talking about, how Bo Nix did, like him and Bryce Young were kind of even here. Bryce had 224, 2 touchdowns, but though he had those 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
And Bo Nix had 284 yards and 3 touchdowns. They both threw 37 times. And they're kind of, the separator there is the 3 touchdowns for Nix and the 2 interceptions for Young. Otherwise, it was both respectable games.
I wouldn't have thought that. That's crazy.
Where the difference maker is their running games on both sides of the ball were non-existent. Like their top rusher for the Panthers was Hubbard at 56 yards. And for the Broncos,
McLaughlin.
Yeah, what happened to Javonte?
I know he had a touchdown.
Javonte did?
But no, McLaughlin.
Yeah, he had a receiving touchdown, but he had 8 carries for 47 yards. So both of those running backs were kept in check, under 60 yards. What I was impressed with, because I'm in Dynasty too, is the Jalen Coker stat line, the 4 catches, 78 yards, and a touchdown. He's been stashed away on a lot of my benches for like a next year kind of like promising like wide receiver depth piece, but having him come and show 78 yards and a touchdown against this tough Broncos defense is kind of impressive and keeps me just leaving him on my bench. But Sutton, coming off of that goose egg there, 8 catches for 100 yards, that's not too shabby, huh?
No, absolutely not. That just goes to show with the targets there. Debo looks like he's struggling to get up. Go get it.
Oh, that's not good.
Oh, she's mad. I didn't know when the fam was coming home, so I got myself some food delivered, and my youngest is looking at me crooked.
Uh-oh. Well, if you need to get out of here, that's fine. Seth gave me the instructions to run in if I have to, so no pressure.
That's all right. No. I'm with you. I want to run through. I know, dude. And on the defensive side of the football, do you think that the Broncos had the edge, and that's why it ended up that way, or do you think Bryce Young is just still that guy who's not comfortable and capable of running that team well enough? Or do you think there's just not enough talent at all to run around?
Without watching the game, what I think is the Broncos did enough to keep Bryce in check, but Bryce also didn't do enough to lose the job again. Like,
Right.
dude, if you told me like he threw for over 200 yards and got 2 touchdowns this week from the beginning of the season, I'd be like, all right, I'll take that, because
Yeah.
we weren't getting diddly squat from Bryce at the beginning of the season. I think those few games he sat behind Dalton kind of let things set in and settle in and get absorbed into his mindset and his key. And he showed, it sounds like, just based off looking at his stats, that he had more poise, he had more precision, and he had more maturity in his passing game.
I know from watching, he had a better connection today with Xavier Legette. However you say his last name, I don't know.
Yeah.
But he had a way better connection. Their chemistry was there today. And with Thielen missing, who's pretty much a short thing, you got to have an ace in the hole. And I think he was that for him today. Could it have gone better? Yeah, but I think it still went well.
So what I'm gathering is you probably think it wasn't a bad experience with Bryce. It was like a okay to good. Like, it was, going up against the defense he was going up against and on the road. Like, it was all right.
Yeah, serviceable for sure.
Going forward, do you think he would be comfortable if he was your starting like NFL level? Like, you'd start him next week playing and let him get into more playing time in?
You know what? I guess, because I just take a look at the record and I see how the games are going. You have 1 win. All right. And of course, Dalton got it there. They didn't have any wins with Bryce in. But I mean, Dalton only got 1. And schedule has something to do with that. But I don't know. I think
their next 3 games
I don't think you can keep playing quarterback roulette.
Yeah.
I think it affects the team in such a negative way to not have a leader out there, someone that you're used to, someone that knows the routes, someone you can have that special connection with, someone you just know how he thinks, how he plays, in or out of the pocket.
Because I never like quarterback roulette. I got a little bit worried there with your Steelers when you you guys did it last week.
And
but
I don't even know how or why. Obviously, it worked out. Tomlin is obviously a guy who's never had a losing record in the 20-plus years he's been with the Steelers. And, some Super Bowls under his belt. But still, I was confused by the move because Fields was getting it done just fine. But look what Russ did when he went in there. I mean, it's unreal. Obviously, you see in practice what we don't see at all. And I think it was just, I don't know, because if Russ doesn't last and he doesn't keep starting and Fields ends up being that guy, Wilson's only there for 1 year under contract. So if they just choose not to re-sign him, he's going to bounce around to another team. So I think
like the Raiders
giving
or the
him
Dolphins
an opportunity to maybe get re-signed.
Yeah.
But
he's making an argument for
that one. But as far as Bryce Young is concerned, I'll tell you this: if the Panthers were my team, I'd be worried. I wouldn't be stoked week to week on what to expect, especially with a record of 1-7. That's for goddamn sure. And,
their
that
next
kind of
3
sucks.
opponents are the Saints, the Giants, and then the Chiefs.
Yeah, I don't know what to think of that. I mean,
Saints look really bad today again, really bad. So maybe the Panthers have better fortune next week.
The Chiefs look good. I know that's a loss.
Yeah. The Giants, we'll see how badly the Steelers put a bruising on them. Because they have to go overseas to play Germany in that game. It'll be the Panthers and Giants in Germany.
Yeah, that'd be cool, huh?
Yeah.
I'm coming.
And then the Broncos, they end up playing the Ravens next week, then the Chiefs, and then the Falcons. So they got a much harder schedule coming up here.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with Kirk Cousins putting up over 400 yards in that game,
Yeah, in a dynasty league, I ended up getting a trade done where I got Kyle Pitts and Kirk Cousins.
I know that they had killer days today. Killer days.
So I'm happy. I mean, my drafts for the next couple of years look pretty bad because I gave up quite a bit of picks and young players, but I'm happy that I got the deal done after seeing this this week of games.
Heck yeah. Right on. Well, hey, brother, I am going to sign off from the Shady Sports Network. here tonight, and I'm gonna let you guys go. And Justin, sorry to leave you hanging there,
It's
but
all
I got
good,
family
man.
time.
Family
I know you had
first.
your family time during the day today, but I
Mm-hmm.
love you guys all out there at Fantasyland. Thanks for joining the tailgate, and guys, Justin is very knowledgeable. Obviously, you know from watching this season, he's my dude. And we brought him on the show for a reason, as I'm sure you can tell. So please stay tuned with him and listen to what he has to say. It's only going to help you, not hurt you. And if you have any need or help to reach out, guys know my inbox. And I will see you guys on Tuesday.
Hell yeah, I like the sound of that.
All right, brother.
All right, peace.
Peace.
All right, now Bandwagon faithful, let's if you have any comments, questions, or any lineup advice, anything football related, feel free to throw them down in the comments in the chat, and I will be more than happy to answer them going forward throughout the show tonight. I will we went through a couple games already, a couple matchups, and some fantasy value stats so far at this point, but I'll run through for the rest of the game some of the scores we got. We got Jaguars not holding off the Packers, losing to them 30-27. Packers ended up losing Jordan Love at a certain point in the game to a groin injury. We'll monitor that and see where he's going for next week. They play my Lions, and they're going to need him. But Malik Willis looked serviceable. Again, he's proven he's been a good quarterback in the league this year when he's playing. So he is no scrub. We're not going to overlook him as a team as the Lions are. And it should still make for a good game. The Jaguars also lost a player. Two, actually. I just got breaking news update. They lost Brian Thomas Jr. to a chest injury. He left during the game, but he had a ho-hum sort of line for stats-wise as comparatively to what he's been doing throughout the week. And so the Jaguars also lost Christian Kirk. He's going to be out the rest of the season with a broken collarbone, it's being reported. Now, I didn't see the injury during the game. I don't have any stock of Christian Kirk in my lineup, so I didn't get the notification that he left during the game. But now reports coming out, Sleeper and NFL and other sources of saying that he'll be done for the year with a broken collarbone. That is incredibly unfortunate, and looking forward to him to have a healthy and fast recovery and get back at it next year. Some of the leaders in that game, we got Trevor Lawrence playing a respectable game comparatively to his last couple where he was been in the earlier in the year. He had 308 yards, 2 touchdowns, still a pick. But where the game was won and lost here that I saw was the rushing attack. We got Josh Jacobs touching the ball for 25 times or 127 yards and cashing in 2 touchdowns. That is extremely amazing for fantasy and just for the NFL level for the Packers to control that running game and keep the time of possession in their favor and keeping the ball out of the Jaguars' offense's hands. Now, ETN did not play again, so Tank Bigsby took the reins. He finished the game with 78 yards. Not too bad if you flexed him. Kind of underwhelming if you had to rely on one of your 2 main running back spots. Once again, there was a Tucker Kraft sighting. Caught the ball 3 times for 78 yards and a touchdown, was a leading receiver for the Packers, and helped them seal the deal in this game with a couple big plays. Now, the yardage for both teams kind of about the same, but like I said earlier, the rushing yards was vastly different. The Jaguars couldn't get anything going on the ground, only 91 yards comparatively to the Green Bay Packers 170 yards rushing. When you're not being effectively able to run the ball, it means you can't control the game, manage the clock, and do the things you want to do, and the Packers clearly were able to do that. I was listening to that game on the radio for part of the day, and it sounded like the Packers had the ball a lot more of the time. Comparatively, so they had 34 minutes of the ball to the Jaguars 25. And again, like I've been saying with Seany here tonight, earlier, this is where most games are won and lost, but they were both effectively terrible on third downs. Jaguars were 1 for 9. When you can on third down, if you're only getting it once, that's not getting the job done. You're taking your offense off the field. That's good. But Packers on the other side of the ball, though, only 3 for 11. So they weren't respectable either. They just took the advantage their way with the 2 times they had. I mean, penalties, though. Jaguars, 8 penalties for 59 yards compared to the 3 for the Packers for 20 yards. It's like not keeping the ball on the field on third down and penalties, shooting yourself in the foot is not a good formula. So the game was awfully close. Another McManus game-winning field goal at the end to seal it. He's turned out to be quite an addition for the Packers here, winning them games in the final seconds, sending the Packers to 6-2. The Jaguars fall 2-6. Jaguars, the next 3 games, they'll be playing the Eagles next week. They'll play the Vikings, and then they'll play the Lions. So they'll get another double dose of the NFC North here in a couple weeks. And don't see them winning either of those games or the Eagles. So they're going to have a rough patch here. I don't know how long Doug Peterson stays in the fold and that coaching situation goes. I mean, other than Trevor Lawrence having a good game, they need to have Travis Etienne back for sure, and losing both their wide receivers today leaves a lot of question marks going into next week's game for sure. And then on the Packers side of the ball, you got them playing their next 3 weeks. They have the Lions next week, then they have the Bears, and then the 49ers. So this will be a kind of challenging part of their schedule for them going into these next 3 weeks here. Luckily for them, 2 out of the 3 weeks will be playing at home. But first of all, they have to take care of my kitties at home. And they just watched them put up 52 points against the Titans. So we're no slouch in putting up points against teams and punishing teams. So, and best part is the Lions came out of that game healthy, whereas the Packers had some injuries and some questionable things going on. So on to the next game here. We got the Lions and the Titans. Oh boy, do I like talking about my kitties. Yes, Moneymaker, we are answering fantasy football questions. So Lions versus the Titans. Titans game pretty close. First 2 quarters, I think it was first quarter was 14-7. And then second quarter rolled around, and like last week against the Vikings, those Lions put up 21 points in the second quarter and really just pulling away on this game. Right there. They won that game in the second quarter. They put Tennessee to bed. And after that, it was 17 points in the third quarter. No teams. It was pretty much wrapped up by the fourth quarter. No points scored. It's 14-52 after 3. And, you know, it just goes to show when Titans came in, they had a lot of injuries, a lot of their starters not out. Mason Rudolph had a respectable game, though, posting up 266, a touchdown and a rushing touchdown. But those 2 interceptions, when you can't take care of the ball, turn the ball over, giving the opportunities for the short field for the other team, it doesn't translate well for the team. And the Lions did their job and punished them with those turnovers. Goff, he was efficient, but he wasn't effective for your fantasy purposes. He was only 12 for 15 for 85 yards, but those 3 touchdowns, I mean, it's efficiency. He's a cerebral killer at this point. He doesn't have to put up MVP numbers for you, but he also didn't kill your lineups if you had him going. That's respectively probably between 16 to 20 points in fantasy, which is not bad at the quarterback position. Now, the running game for the Lions was obviously effective and translated well. If you look at the stat board here, they got Jahmyr Gibbs running 11 carries, 127 yards and a touchdown, and David Montgomery, 9 carries, 33 yards and a touchdown. But Montgomery did throw a touchdown to Laporta, so if you guys have Laporta out there, that was pretty good for your tight end position. He did relatively effective. He led the team in receiving in 6 catches, 48 yards, touchdown. That's very respectable numbers. But again, then on the other side of the ball for the Titans, they kept Tony Pollard in there pretty much the entire game, which is quite baffling, being that you're getting the doors blown off of you and you still have your starters in there. So respect to Tony Pollard for staying in the game and, making a thing of it. He had 20 carries, 94 yards. Not too bad. He had a couple catches for 23. So overall, I think the game went as expectedly as what you'd think it'd go going into it. You got a struggling Titans team going on the road to play a just dominant top tier NFL team on the other side of it at home, coming off a big win against a division rival. It was a very sure-handed, just defining performance there. I think the only performance you're probably a little bit disappointed with, if you're on a fantasy output, is Amon-Ra St. Brown's stat line over. Yeah, Amon-Ra, 2 catches, 7 yards, and a touchdown. That's not what we're expected to seeing there. Whereas Calvin Ridley had himself a game. I was talking about Calvin Ridley a week or so ago about him as a drop it like it's hot candidate, because he was just not doing what a starting caliber wide receiver should be doing in the NFL. But he had himself a game. He had 130 yards. Bunch of grabs. He did good. So there was some promising stuff coming out of the Titans out of this game. I mean, overall, it was a pretty demoralizing loss. But if you got some of your stars holding down the fort, Mason Rudolph did well in the backup role, and their running back, Pollard, did good, and Ridley did good for receiving. So going into their next week's coming up, let's see, who do they play? Now, I don't think they're going to end up winning next week, because that Honolulu Blue, that Detroit Lions hangover, is proven to be a thing. They play the Patriots, though, so that is a winnable game. They could win it. I'm not sure how that game will go on either side, because there's 2 very struggling teams. But the Patriots did get the win today. They ended up beating the Jets at the end there. That was pretty demoralizing loss for Aaron Rodgers and those boys, but they'll have to figure stuff out. Titans will play the Patriots, then the Chargers, then the Vikings. So that is pretty interesting schedule. The Chargers are playing well, and so are the Vikings. So if you can get a win against the Patriots, that is a good step forward to get your team moving for the rest of the season. Now, on the Lions side of the ball, I was really impressed with how the defense did, not having really much of a pass rush this game. Still, no calls being made or no moves being made with Brad Holmes and company as far as getting pass rushers in here to help out with the pass rush, because the Lions only threw for 61 yards comparatively to the Titans' 258 yards. They only got 1 sack on the quarterback, which is just not good enough. Luckily, they played a bad team, and they didn't even have time of possession. The Titans had the ball for 35 minutes to the Lions 24, so it was just those turnovers that the Lions were able to turn into points and punish them for it. So good game for my Lions. Now I have to look forward to the Packers, the Texans, and the Jaguars. So next 2 games especially are going to be kind of very tough and daunting. The Texans end up winning their game against the Colts 23-20 and looks pretty good doing it. Joe Mixon is a baller. He's a stud. He is just dominating and taking over and helping out CJ Stroud when he isn't able to get the ball out as a passer. So those are some of the games. I'll run through the rest of the scores here. We got Falcons beating the Bucks 31-26. Eagles over the Bengals 37-17. Saints over the Chargers. Chargers over the Saints 26-8. Bills over the Seahawks 31-10. We went over the Commanders beating the Bears 18-15 on that last second play. Broncos taking care of business, like we said, 28-14 over the Panthers. Chiefs just keep winning games. Beat the Raiders 27-20. Raiders are going to Raider. That old shindig. And that's about that. So pretty much standard for the week on how the scores went. No big shocking wins, no big shocking losses. As we get into losses, here are some of the injuries from this week. They're notable for not only NFL, but for fantasy purposes. You got Stephon Diggs leaving the game with a knee injury. He'll be evaluated, and we'll have more information later on in the week. Drake May left at some point with a concussion. He was having a really promising game and doing well statistically, and hopefully it's not a serious injury. He can come back next week and play. But concussions shouldn't be taken lightly, handled seriously. I'm sure the Patriots medical team will evaluate him correctly and have him ready to go for next week against the Titans. Brian Thomas Jr., we went over. He had a chest injury. More diagnosis on that later. Rico Dowdle is a late scratch. I know I missed that for some of my lineups, and I forgot to make moves there. He had an illness, wasn't feeling okay, good to go, so he did not suit up for tonight, which was unfortunate. A couple other things I want to go over. Sterling Shepard, he was kind of our waiver wire fill-in if you were desperate to throw out. He didn't really do well. I think he had 4 catches for about 40 some odd yards, but he also suffered a hamstring injury, so it kind of feels like a burnout for, the waiver priority you might have spent on or the waiver ad. And it was the Cade Otton show in Tampa Bay. He had a whale of a game, multiple catches, a big touchdown, and he was definitely Baker Mayfield, one of his top receiving options going forward. So I would say out of that game, if you were looking for someone to maybe upgrade at the position or find someone that could have sustainable value rest of season, I'd definitely keep your eyes on the horizon for Cade Otton. That running backfield in that game was between Rachaad White and Bucky Irvin. Not much to see or hear from on the Sean Tucker end of it. So if you invested into him, I'm sorry about that. But it looks like it's going to be Rachaad White in the passing game, passing downs, and you have Bucky Irvin doing more of the running role. But he also had some receiving yards and receiving stats too. So I think they're going to mix those running backs in. And Baker Mayfield, he's showing that he could still manage a game and put points up on the board, even missing his 2 top options. For the Saints-Chargers game, Kendre Miller, I know he wasn't doing anything this year. He's just kind of the hopeful running back that you could probably fill in on your lineups at some point this season, maybe split carries with Alvin Kamara, but it's looking like it might not be the case. He suffered a hamstring injury, and that Saints offense is just looking abysmal. It is not going to plan over there in New Orleans. They even benched their quarterback today, Spencer Rattler, in favor of Jake Horner, and it did not go so well. Chargers has handled business on the road, taking care of the Saints, and I don't know what to tell you guys as far as a fantasy perspective on where to go with this Saints offense. I know Chris Olave was back and had a respectable day, just nothing that would win you your week, but he didn't also tank your lineup. So that's promising for him in that aspect. They just have a really big issue right now with their quarterback room. It looks like they're going to be playing quarterback roulette until Derek Carr comes back, and that hurts a lot of the fantasy options like Kamara and Olave going forward. For the Chargers, though, it was nice to see that J.K. Dobbins bounced back, had a touchdown, got a lot of carries. It was good there, but overall, watching the Saints, it's not it is not something that is fun to watch at all. So I know I went through some of the games, some of the injuries. That's kind of what stood out for me from this week. Otherwise, with the other games of the week, there wasn't much notable because I wasn't able, unfortunately, to watch a lot of football today. I need to do some all 22 and some catch-up film so I can be ready, prepared for Tuesday's show. But for tonight, I'm still not watching the Cowboys-Niners game. I'm on here with you guys talking football. So if you got any questions, any lineup fantasy football stuff, or just want to root and ho-hum about your teams or the games, feel free to drop stuff in the chat, and we'll talk it out, and we'll enjoy your time together. So For my team of the week, I know said the bus driver usually has the graphics and all that and is the captain here. I didn't really have a good week with the team of the week. I mean, Dak's playing right now. Achan got in most leagues 24 points, 97 yards, 6 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. So he did well. It was good seeing Tua coming back in that offense. It showed that the offense could run a lot more effectively and a lot more, production. It sucks that they didn't get the win. They lost to a game-winning field goal by the Cardinals, but there's some promise in that offense, and take the panic level down there with fantasy assets moving forward. Najee Harris hasn't played yet. He was my other running back I had on my assembled team. Amari Cooper, though, this was shocking. I thought he was going to have another solid stat line, but it turned out to be the Dalton Kincaid, James Cook, and Coleman show. Josh Allen was spreading the ball around a lot and effectively. It just was not to my guy this week, Amari Cooper. So he unfortunately only had 1 catch, 3 yards. So translated in most leagues, that's an eighth of a point or a point, depending on if it was full PPR or half PPR. So I whiffed on Amari Cooper, and that was unfortunate. Not much you could do when games like that happen. Hopefully he bounces back next week and turns that around so he becomes more of a confident start and play in your lineups. I swung for the fences again, thinking that another player that was traded would have a good game. Devontae Adams, the other wide receiver, he was overshadowed by Garrett Wilson, who had the better game. And you know me, I've been believing in my Garrett Wilson. I believe now that Devontae Adams is in town, he's going to be freed up more, and he's going to be able to have more of the bigger games. So I tried to get too cute in my lineup and go with the number 1 option to Rodgers and Devontae Adams, and he only translated with 4 catches for 55 yards. So about 8 points this week. So far, we're looking at our team. We got Achan just, doing his thing and holding up our roster. And then once we get over to Cade Otton, 9 catches, like I said, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns, unless if you got special scoring preferences for tight ends that translate, you got you between 25, 26 points. And that's really huge in your tight end spot. That's a positional advantage that you have there. And I think going forward, Cade Otton is a huge add if you can get him in your lineups, because I think Baker Mayfield is going to be relying on him going forward in the passing game. Now, in the assembled lineup, we got Devonta Smith in the flex spot. He did really well. He did overshadowed A.J. Brown, because like I was saying in previous shows, that it's usually going to be an A.J. Brown or a Devonta Smith kind of a game. They can't really feast on the same game with each other, but Devonta Smith ended up being the primary beneficiary of today. I mean, Jalen Hurts had 3 rushing touchdowns, so he vultured a lot of the points this week, but he still got some to Devontae. He had 6 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown, which translated around 18 points, which is not too shabby in a flex spot. That kind of makes up for our 2 wide receivers there in the assembled team, so I was happy about that. We go down to our kicker. We had Will Lutz. This was a recipe. This was a high possibility, though, because when you're playing teams like the Panthers, your team is putting points in the end zone and not having drives stall. I was thinking leading on the side of Broncos having still some inconsistencies on offense and not being able to finish drives, but I was happily proven wrong by that Denver offense. I know Sed was happy about his team's result, getting touchdowns and putting it in the end zone, but it didn't translate well for Will Lutz. He made every single extra point, but that's all he had today. So that came out to 4 points compared to his 17 points last week. So hopefully going forward, he's getting more field goal opportunities still. But for the Broncos as a whole, it's good that they're scoring touchdowns, though. It's just at the sacrifice of our Will Lutz, the kicker. And then, like I said earlier with Seany, you heard me talk about Baltimore's defense. Not so hot. Not a good day at all. They only put up 4 points in fantasy if you run defenses in your league. allowing 29 points to the Browns is never a good week. It's never a good thing. So props to the Browns for putting away the Ravens today and, getting a win. I know that one's going to sting for the Ravens. Going forward now, if you guys have any questions in the chat, any comments, any, talking about this Niners-Cowboys game, what you're seeing, what you're liking, feel free to post it down here in chat. You can also keep this thing going after we come off live tonight over on the Facebook group, the Shady Sports Fantasy Football Reports over there. Keep your questions, comments, and all that fun stuff rolling along. We also have a Discord channel going. I don't know if Seth put that in the link below for the start of this show, but you can keep the conversations, the fantasy questions, and advice, and all those comments that you have, and all the things you do in the live chat. Carry on that over the show. And yeah, so I'm here talking with you about this week's games and the show as a whole. I didn't really do fantasy well this week, so there wasn't much to talk about there. If there isn't any more things going on here, I think we're gonna wrap it up soon. Sorry. Yeah, a couple things though I want to go back for game wise is the Vikings Rams game. I know that was a Thursday night game, but I thought even though on a short week it would be more of a high scoring, shootout over there in LA, but it turns out a lot of surprises we had. Like I wasn't expecting Cooper Kupp to come in and play or Puka, so they were on a lot of my benches, so that wasn't nice for my sake for fantasy wise, but I think this win for the Rams turns a lot of things around. I know there's a lot of trade rumors going around for Kupp going somewhere and Stafford potentially maybe getting traded, but I think with this win against the Vikings that the Rams will stand pat with their team and make a push here in the NFC West, because with the Seahawks losing, depending on how this Niners game goes tonight, and the Cardinals winning, I think they're very much still in the hunt in that division and can make a run of it. On the Vikings side of the ball, it's unfortunate to see that injury to Darisaw. It sounds like he's going to be out for the season, so that's definitely going to hurt their pass protection for Darnold going forward. And then for Aaron Jones, I hope that he keeps being able to run the ball effectively in that offense, because the Vikings were looking really good here these first 5 weeks. I know these last two have kind of fallen off the wagon here, and it's kind of like a doom and gloom, but I wouldn't panic. You got a good schedule coming up for the Vikings, and there should be brighter days. That was an unfortunate loss how it ended, though, with the refs and whatnot, and that's always not a good thing to have go down, but I'd take this one on the chin going forward and build off of it. You got a nice schedule coming up, and you can pile some wins together, and there's brighter days ahead for sure. Looking ahead to the Monday night football game, the Giants and the Steelers, I'm hoping to see the Steelers form an identity in offense if they're going to be more of a pass-centric offense with Russell Wilson and George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth. I like to see a lot of big plays coming from that side of the ball, and I'd also like to see Najee just really close out games and be like a pseudo Derrick Henry and run the ball and control the clock and be effective on first and second downs and keeping those chains moving. So yeah, and then as far as the Giants go, let's just see them and Malik Neighbors coming back from his concussion, have an effective game with Daniel Jones throwing the ball. I don't know what their running game is going to do between Singletary and Tracy. I'd like to see more of Tracy play, but Dable's got Singletary as his guy, so I feel like he's going to eat into his carries. And I don't know. I was saying with Shawnee, I think it's going to be a slobber knocker on the Steelers side of the ball, but I hope the Giants show up to play more so than they did against the Bengals before. I mean, I like to see good Monday Night Football games and not necessarily high scoring points, but at least both teams have a fighting chance of putting up a good fight. I thank everybody for tonight stopping in, and watching us. I know it's a little bit different. We had Said be out. Shawnee had to pop out early with family, and you had me running the show here things. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. I look forward to seeing you guys talking more football with you on Tuesday. And you guys come and join us. I hope we'll look forward to getting some interaction in the groups and the other chats and the servers. Keep this going. We love talking football with you. We love presenting you and helping you with your lineups and doing all that fantasy stuff. So if you do, please like and share this and follow it. Spread the word. We're looking to grow as a community, and we're looking to grow as our show and get more of a community growing and building this thing so we can help more and more people out here that enjoy football and fantasy football too. So yeah, also if you have the time, post your fantasy lineups in for our show on Tuesday so we can maybe run some questions and fantasy advice through you guys and your teams. That would be helpful. I'm gonna check in here real quick and see how the Niners Cowboys game is going, and we can give a little up to date update for you before we get on out of here for the night. Let's see. Pop it on live. Looks to be on a commercial. That is not convenient. Let me see. Let's see if I can check the score. Sorry, we don't like dead air time. All right. Oh, what a slobber knocker. We got 10-6. And Purdy is 151 yards. Dak 110 with the interception. Ezekiel Elliott is the lead. Oh, he's got a touchdown. Who dat? 29 yards and touchdown. Not too bad. Mason's got Gorendo as the leading rusher at 38 yards. CeeDee Lamb, 48 yards and 7 catches. And George Kittle for 3-56. It is National Tight End Day, so it was fantastic to see a lot of those tight ends perform for their NFL teams and on your fantasy lineups this week. Evan Ingram, I think, did well. Kittle's doing good now. Kate Otten had a good game. Sam Laporta had a good game. So on National Tight End Day, a lot of tight ends performing well on their football teams just seems appropriate. So I'm going to sign off here, guys. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I look forward to seeing you here on Tuesday night. I hope your matchups go well and in your favor. You get big wins. And I hope for everybody's teams who won today, that was good for you. You enjoy the wins. For those of you with teams that lost today, look forward to the next week and hope for better results. I'm Justin signing off for Shady Sports Network on the Fantasy Sports Reports. I hope you all have a great night. Peace.
I'm a game changer.